there was a decision that was made, and that decision is that according to the Sports Business Journal, USC and Texas have canceled their spring game this year. Ohio State and Nebraska have done the same. And so it feels like this is another aspect of NIL, the growth of the sport, the change in the sport, but apparently spring games are on borrowed time, and they're going to be moving away from that great tradition. So there's that. Do with that what you
want
will.
That one first?
It's disappointing, in part because, like, here's what's getting lost on everything, is we're now making decisions on a sport it's not an amateur level anymore, but it's at a lower level where there's still a ton of development that goes on. I mean, you've got a son that's now enrolled at Penn State. Imagine what he's going to look like, be like, play like in 3 or 4 years. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And what bothers me about this is we're making decisions to take away spring games for 2 reasons. All right. And we're talking about like top school, blue blood schools, USC, Texas, I think Ohio State. They're all opting, instead of having a spring game, basically having what the NFL has and having like OTAs. And it's for 2 reasons. The first is injury related. There's concern about injuries, which, I mean, maybe I'm missing something. Has that not always been the concern?
Yeah.
That's literally always been a reason for concern for every coach in every college football program in the history of college football. So that's the first thing. The second, though, that's most important and probably trumps all of it is it's the money aspect that's involved with, whether a guy's playing and starting, if he's not, using the transfer portal to get somewhere else. When I mention injuries, there's an element of guys not wanting to do it because they're slated to go in the first round after the next fall. Why do they have to be a part of it? Which, I mean, in all honesty, they can just sit out and let some younger guys play. But it's the money aspect of things, because you've got players who are looking at that spring game and being told by their agents, being told by their caretakers, whoever it is, that this is where you're on the depth chart. If you want to leave, you can go play somewhere else, get paid more. And so now they're looking at these spring games as an indication of that. So coaches are fearful about putting out depth charts, having guys go out there and play in these spring games, because they don't want to lose players potentially to not playing as much in the spring game or having a poor performance. And now all of a sudden they're not going to be a guy that's going to be viewed as a starter going into camp. So they've got this window to transfer. I'm going to go jet and go try to find more money elsewhere at a place where I can start and play. So like I understand in saying all this too, people are going to say, well, yeah, shouldn't that player have the opportunity to do that if they want? Sure. If that's how you see this. Like, if you don't believe in development, if you don't believe in trying to develop, and maybe there's a point in time where you're not ready, and maybe that's what this is. Like, there's a bigger story here about life where at times you can get exposed and say, like, maybe I'm not ready yet. Maybe I need more time. Maybe I need more development, instead of just going somewhere else because I'm not getting an opportunity here at one of these bigger schools. But that's in essence what you're seeing. And it stinks. It quite honestly stinks. It's a great event. The spring game's a great event for a lot of folks around the university, not just football, but like everyone else, other sports teams, other students, other people around, the alumni that come in for it. And so it's disappointing now that's not going to exist the way it once did.
I'll say I watched the evolution of the spring game from when I played to now, and it has certainly taken on a different feel. I said this maybe 6 years ago. It's like the attendance isn't the same. Like, there have been times where they reported some really, really great crowds, and I'll just say in particular specific. I've been to several, different schools where I've gone to their spring games in recent years, and the game wasn't, it wasn't a game anymore. But I would say more specifically, because I go to Penn State pretty much every year, I watch the evolution of it, and it has slowly turned into a glorified practice in front of the public. The fans are able to come out and watch the team practice, because it was not – they call it the spring game, but it did not come across as a game at all. The punts, the kickoffs – it was controlled, and it was ran just like it was a period in practice. The way the the way the game, air quotes, was ran, it was ran like a practice. You blew the whistle, did at a certain point. Running backs weren't being taken to the ground, let alone a pass rusher getting close to the quarterback and passing downs. So to me, the spring game has ultimately turned into what would be perceived as a spring practice, a public practice that is held in the main stadium, and people are able to come watch and attend, and it's considered to be a preseason or precursor to what the team may look like going into the next season, is how I would look at it. So I don't know that it's based off of the current NIL or transfer portal as to why the game has evolved, but I do think that there are reasons why coaches have evolved what the game has represented. Because when I played, it was really a game. You had blue versus white, and you came out, and it was literally a real game. It was a game. Who's going to win the game? It was tackling. Now, we weren't able to tackle the quarterback. That was something we weren't able to do even when I was in school, but everything else was live. Everything else was live. That's just not how it is anymore. And it's interesting because I don't see the amount of people coming out to watch it like they did. Like, it was literally like a game when I played. It's more like people are coming out. It's kind of festive. It's not as much festive things as there would be if it was a regular game Saturday during the season, but it's still a little festive. People are able to come out. The weather's changing. They do some tailgating. They have some fun. They go and watch the game, but it's pretty light. It's very light anymore. So I don't know. It's an evolution of where the sport is. I'm certain now that we're looking at it with the NIL and the transfer portal being more prevalent and being a part of college sports, it definitely is playing a part in it now. But I think that the game has continued to evolve from the 90s to where we are now, in the 2020s of what's going on in college football.
That was one of those aspects of college football that I didn't understand until I got to a place that really loved college football. Because growing up in Southern California, it's not like, hey, man, USC, UCLA spring games right around the corner. You guys going? It didn't have that gravity. There wasn't, there's not that appeal, that interest in it. But then you get out to SEC country, ACC country, and it's like, wait, 80,000 people show up to your spring games?
Yeah,
really?
That might be a little embellished. But
no.
Yeah.
There are places where they were doing 80 to 100,000 people showing up to spring games.
That might be a little embellished.
You don't think
Ohio State did last year? I called the game. I was there for it.
Might be a little.
They 100% did.
That might be a little embellished. That's all I'll say.
It definitely wasn't. I witnessed it.
Might be. I could dig. Might be a little embellished.
I know you feel inferior to them at this point.
Oh, I don't feel inferior at all.
You can admit that.
I don't feel inferior at all. It just could be a little embellished.
Okay. Well, we'll call it 75,000.
Okay.
All right,
60,
we'll round down.
70,
but the
maybe.
point is, it's a practice game in which 60 to 70 to 80, et cetera, 1,000 people show up to watch their team. And, yeah, there may not be a benefit from a financial standpoint to the players, or I know like Mike Florio took the approach of, well, they can't make money off it. But I would imagine for that town, like the businesses around that town,
of course,
that's a huge moneymaker. And now the opportunity's gone because things are changing the way they are.
April 13th, 2024, Ohio State has 80,012 people who attend the spring game there at Ohio Stadium. Other notable big, spring game attendances. You had Alabama at 72,358 reportedly. Okay. Nebraska at 60,452.
Michigan and Penn State.
Notre Dame. And it goes down from here. Oklahoma at 45,861. Clemson with 47,000 fans. Notre Dame had about 37,128. So,
yeah, could be embellished.
I'm not only going to send you the article with this, I'm actually going to send you the fact that they have video evidence to go along with it.
I don't know that video evidence would give you. Are you going to sit there and count? Count them off.
I'm not,
Right, I'm
but
not
it
either.
feels
I
like
don't
this
know
is
about
a weird hill to die on.
I don't
That's
need to
what it
die
feels
on
like.
it. I'm not dying on it. And I'm not going to argue
Well,
with
stand
y'all
on
about it.
it.
I'm
Hey,
just
hey,
saying
hey,
it
hey,
could
stand
be.
on it then.
Why not?
I'm
Stand
not
on it,
standing
LaVar.
on this hill.
You're stand on that.
I just
Yeah.
said it could be. I mean, I
Yeah.
could be wrong. Hey, forget
I feel
about
like if
it.
you're
Let's just
standing, you
move
might
on.
be bouncing on like a pogo stick.
Hey,
at
let's
this
just
point,
move on.
somebody.
Hey, forget about it. Forget about it. I said what I said. I'm not going to die on that hill, but I said what I said.
Lee, this is going to be a weird request, but can you look this up? I believe that there was one year in which Georgia had a spring game, and Ludacris showed up and handed out condoms. I believe.
That was Kentucky, and that was Midnight Madness.
I think that was a Georgia game, Georgia spring game.
Was it?
And if it was
You might be
Kentucky
right.
and
You
it was
might be right.
basketball, wouldn't you think it would be Drake, if anyone?
Good call.
Doesn't he kind of follow like the bandwagon programs?
Yeah, he
yeah,
is
you could be right.
Mr. Kentucky.
I believe this was in 2016. Yes, it was Georgia, to the delight of 93,000 in attendance at Sanford Stadium.
To the delight of 93,000.
And he brought condoms.
Yes, he did.
How
He brought
many-
93,000
how many condoms?
I don't think he brought 93,000 condoms, but that was the attendance.
I mean, who paid for all those? USAID?
Oh, yeah! Well done. Hard right hand by Quinn.
What?
Maybe Fauci. Maybe Fauci.
It seems topical these days, you know? Oh.
Wow. That is.
So Georgia actually apologized for giving Ludacris the condoms to hand out.
Oh, they gave them to him.
65 grand as well as 2 bottles of his own cognac.
Wait, say that again.
Georgia apologizes for giving Luda $65K for the event, condoms, and 2 bottles of his own cognac. But I think he was handing out the condoms.
They gave him 2 bottles of his own cognac.
A couple of balloon animals for the road. Nothing wrong with that.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Better safe than sorry. You know what I mean?
Very interesting.
According to the contract, yeah, they a box of condoms was included in the in the contract.
Lee, what would you be looking for if you were a college student?
Those 2 bottles.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
What
There
do
you
you
go.
you want one of these? Nah, I
And
don't
shot
need those.
glasses instead of a condom. He'd use one out of the 2.
By the way, I am showing that Penn State will close its spring practice April 26th with the annual blue-white game.
Yeah, blue-white
So,
game.
Var, are you going to be over there
Of
for
course.
that spring game?
Of course.
I mean, how many thousands of people? What would you say the over-under
I
is
don't know.
for the attendance there?
30, 20, 25. But we'll report 40. You know.
It's messed up, man.
We'll report whatever number you could get to off of. I'll say this. Maybe at any one point in time, like everybody as a whole who comes in and goes out, I could see if the numbers got there that way. I could see if the numbers got that way. You're counting everybody who walks in, which I don't know how you keep track of that. I don't know how you keep track of that.
I mean, there's security measures where, like, you can have a counter just as part of whatever people are walking through, right?
No, there's not. Some stadiums don't have counters. They don't have counters.
So when they scan your ticket, you don't think that counts as well?
But I don't think they scan tickets at the blue-white game.
Oh, I think they do. You have to nowadays for security measures.
I'll pay attention more this year. I've never really used a ticket ever, so I don't know. But I know the few times that I did pay attention going into the blue-white game, it'd be no different than just walking in to a practice. I don't think they had tickets. I don't think there's tickets to the game.
I remember off the top of my head, Ohio State used to charge $5. I think it was $5, and you got a ticket to go to the spring game back then.
Yeah, I don't recall.
$5
I don't
go see
recall
your favorite team.
I don't recall there ever being charging to come to the spring game. I don't recall that. Not for parking. It's like first come, first serve, or whatever it is that they have set up. If you already have your slip, your parking space, like when you tailgate, maybe it's still yours. I'm not certain. I don't want to speak out of term, but I do not think that you're presenting a ticket. You know,
Lee, can you check a couple of things? Price to get into the Penn State spring game, and also yearly attendance, because I want to see how big of a lie they told each year when it comes to just the numbers here. What's the price to get into that spring game there?
I'm seeing free for the blue-white game, but I can't. Hold on.
Probably packing them in.
They're not.
Starting around $20.
Oh, okay, interesting.
The tickets for the blue-white game.
Yeah.
I'm seeing free for the blue-white game. Is that right?
I'm pretty certain it's free.
Yeah. Well, it'll all be gone
You
soon.
hear Q's fingers?
I think that was
Q's
Lee.
fingers. Nah, that wasn't Lee's
No,
fingers.
that's not me.
Oh, that is
Lee.
Lee. Dang,
No,
I didn't
it's
think
Lee.
Lee's fingers moved that
Lee
quick.
pounds it, man.
Ask Danica.
Oh, giving out names, huh?
Did you just say you dumped that, Lee? Did
he
you just
dump
say that, Lee?
He
Yeah.
dumped it. Chris dumped it.
Yeah, that's dumping.
You mean Rhonda?
Ladies and
Oh, please. Dump that.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Well, at least we know who's in charge now.
Can I tell you
He dumped you. He dumped you for saying that.
Can I tell you this? Runaway favorite to win MVP on the show this far, Brady Quinn. After this segment, everybody got it here.
Dang. Admission is
Averages
free.
around 60 to 63,000.
Admission is free for the blue-white game. Fans will enter through gates A, B, and C, and E, which will open at noon. Parking,
But you
mobile
don't think they're
parking
still
passes.
counting just for like security measures?
Like I said, there aren't counters for that. I don't see there being counters even during, but because you have to scan. Like if you scan, that it's a counter. Like yeah, but if you don't have a ticket, I don't know how they're counting. I don't know.
Wow.
I mean, again, I don't know.
Well, I mean, not to get in the weeds here. There is AI surveillance where, like, when people walk through, it'll be able to count people as it's surveilling, like, through camera footage. There's different software systems now, and a lot of these stadiums for these big events, they have to. I mean, it's mandated to some degree, just because, God forbid, something happen. Oftentimes, they're trying their best to be able to account for how many people are there, and God forbid anything happen, like who's where. So it's one of the reasons why, like, they might have some way of tracking that.
They do charge for parking. They do charge $20 and regular vehicle per RV 60 or 60 per bus. Cash or card sales will be accepted at parking
It
lots.
feels like a hell of a place to have a Stick City tailgate. I know that.
That's not a big enough game. I don't do it for that game.
Let's go live to our
Don't do it.
I have a thought on spring game attendance insider Chris Perfett for the latest. Chris.
Yeah, so I've never done something as big as this, but I do know growing up, I worked at the Toledo Zoo and I worked a game for UT Rockets for I want to say basketball, excuse me. You do have a hand counter there, even if you're not even way before AI, you'd have a clicker. You'd take it down for every person coming through that gate.
Yeah,
so
guy
and
does
then
it-
everyone puts those together at the end of the night.
When I go to church, a guy has a clicker. He wants to know how many people are at church. For some strange reason. But there's listen. I think it's a sad day. It's unfortunate. Spring games are going by the wayside. I just hope that more schools don't get accused of lying about their attendance numbers, because that's really what concerns me with all this. But again, to each their own.